Welcome to the Mindful CIO Podcast, where we explore the human side of tech leadership and what it takes to mindfully and sustainably lead high-performing tech teams. In episode 5 of the Mindful CIO Podcast, we spoke with Jorge Silveira, Chief Digital Officer at Court Service Victoria. Jorge is a senior executive with a diverse experience across healthcare, automotive, aviation, government, and tech. He shared stories from his childhood in Brazil, his creative passions like painting and songwriting, and how he blends his love for science with creativity to drive innovation and shape his unique leadership style. We explore the principles of the Mindful CIO Manifesto, focusing on leadership growth, trust, and empowerment within teams. Jorge also shared the Sinkhole metaphor, illustrating how leadership is about lifting each other through challenges. We discussed the evolving role of CIOs and CDOs in the age of AI, including a deep dive into AI ownership and strategy, and the importance of aligning AI initiatives with a company's core purpose. Tune in for an inspiring conversation full of insights on leadership, vulnerability, responsible adoption of AI, and how to lead tech teams with creativity and passion. Hello, and welcome to the Mindful CIO Podcast, where we explore the human side of tech leadership. Today, we have Jorge Silveira. Jorge is a multi-award winning senior executive and recipient of the IDC Asia Pacific CDO of the Year Award. He's recognized by CIO Magazine and Global Leader IDC for transforming organizations across healthcare, automotive, government, technology, and consulting. Known for his visionary leadership and pragmatic execution, Jorge leverages innovation to optimize service delivery, boost efficiency, and elevate customer satisfaction. He has pioneered groundbreaking solutions, integrating emerging technologies and implementing robust cybersecurity frameworks. A sought-after thought leader and keynote speaker, Jorge blends technical expertise with systems thinking to deliver scalable and sustainable growth. With an international perspective and a collaborative approach, he empowers organizations and individuals to thrive. So welcome, Jorge. It's such an honor to have you here. Thanks so much for accepting the invitation to have a conversation today.
Great. Thanks, Nathalie. I really appreciate and always being a big supporter of the Mindful CIO space. So well done for that. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, Jorge, as usual, I like to kick off, asking our guest speakers to share perhaps something that is not so public, that we cannot find in your LinkedIn profile, something perhaps a little bit more personal, or perhaps, any aspect of your career journey that you'd like to share with the listeners.
Yeah, well, there's a few things that people probably would not pick that I used to do it, that I do until today, apart from work, obviously. When I was 7 years old, I started painting. And so I painted until probably 12. And I still paint from time to time. And also do sculptures. I sculpted trees, believe it or not. I love sculpturing trees. And I also write. I write stories and I write songs. I compose songs. So this is actually available on the mainstream streaming platforms.
Wow, amazing. I would definitely need to add that to the show notes, for the listeners. I'm actually curious myself now. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Jorge. So I think it might be relevant to share with the listeners. We connected with Jorge a while ago, and when I invited him for being a speaker in the Mindful CIO podcast, eventually we realized that we were both originally born and raised in Brazil. It took a while to track that back. So in terms of the Mindful CIO Manifesto, Jorge, as you know, the Mindful CIO podcast, the Mindful CIO community, it's all about, it's grounded in the principles of the Mindful CIO Manifesto, and we had the 1.0 and the 2.0. So I'm curious if there are any particular aspects or principles that really resonates with you, and why is that?
Yeah, so thanks, Nathalie. I think they're all great, by the way, because people would have a different sort of affinity to one of them. So the one that I identify myself the most there was the third one, which was we support the growth of our leaders, or leaders' growth. And the reason why I like that is because growth comes with new learnings. New learnings come with being uncomfortable with new things. And to transition someone from the comfort zone to an uncomfort zone to go back into the comfort zone again, it is a task. It requires a lot of things. But I push this very seriously with my direct reports, and I give them the opportunity to be able to grow and experience the things that I experience. So some of them say, "You're just sharing your work with us." So yeah, I'm just sharing my work with you. And yes, you're going to go and talk to the board on my behalf today because I'm going to have dinner with my daughter. So, and they go, "Really?" Yes. So, no, but seriously, this is, I think it's an important aspect because not everything you learn in school. So, and there are things that you just really learn when you throw in the deep end. And of course, with the right support, not just throw in the deep end and forget about it, with the right support. And you learn a lot about people there, the strengths and the weaknesses, the opportunities for growth, and you learn about yourself too. Myself, every time I do that, what could I have done better to ensure that the successful pathway was identified earlier? The process was a little bit less painful, and how could we have achieved more higher value from the whole experience? So far it's been good. So it's been very good, and I've got very good feedback from what I call the participants or the people who work with me, my team, but also from the people they serve. So they became points of reference, and for someone who is not in an executive role to become a point of reference, it means something. It means that there has been acknowledgement that they have grown and they are capable of running whatever they're running, and that would not be possible if they haven't experienced what it was on a day-to-day. It's kind of, you're trained to be a doctor, and if you've never worked in a hospital, you won't be able just to conduct your business. So that's what I do. That's why I resonate with that one. There's always support. I do support, but the support bit is not conditional, but it's as needed. Just put that way. The guidance is always there, and those conversations are very important. But I let this new, just put the way, generation coming through to develop the near pathways, so they can think for themselves and create the reason they need to move forward and make the right decisions. So at least the decisions there, the least complicated, or the ones that is going to cause less problems. Just put that way.
Wow, fascinating. Thanks, George. So many things came to mind listening to you. The first one that I can recall now, it's one of the recommendations I read about you on LinkedIn. One of the people that worked in your teams mentioned some of your qualities now around challenging status quo, and being very receptive to new ideas, and your unwavering support to your team. So I guess what I'm hearing there is that you definitely offer opportunities for growth. So, trusting, it is a big trust to say, hey, you're going to actually, join the board meeting instead of myself because I'm having dinner with my daughter. There is clearly trust, the empowerment of your team. But together with that, there is also the support and guidance. So I wonder how much of that approach that you use with your direct reports comes from your own, your own experience, back in the early days, and the approach that you had to take in, having to step up and, learn from being thrown in the deep end. I wonder how much is coming from your own experience in that sense.
Well, I can sense that you're reading my mind here, and you read me very well. Yeah. So as what we discussed in the conversation, I was born in Islam, in favela, and for me to be able to navigate my way out of a very low social background into where I stand today, I had to do a lot of things myself, and find opportunities where there weren't opportunities, and also meet people that I could learn from. And for those ones that I could learn from, I definitely maximized my opportunity. So I engaged with a lot of people, just asking questions, working for free, at no costs for them, just to sort of to understand how they operate, how they think, what is the standards they have, and why they do what they do, because I wanted to be like them. And what I found as you start moving from more, a frontline role to a management role, and then a senior management executive role, is that there's less and less support in that space. So you can learn a lot, on the front line. So you've got plenty of support. But the higher you go in the ladder, the less friends you have. And, just got to always look it down and make sure that who's holding the ladder and in those roles too. So what I wanted to bring to people I work with is just the ability to grow themselves. And because I found it extremely difficult for me to be able to get where I am if I did not have any support. So you get better. Year on year, you get better to identifying people that can complement your skills and people that are actually open to share with you to improve the status quo, just to leave the place better than we found it, just put that way. Yes, there's a lot to do with that. So the lack of the scarcity, I would say, of knowledge and opportunity for me when I was a child, it does play a massive role now, because I feel that my direct reports and the people that I have responsibility for, not that they are my children because they're adults, grown-ups, but I have a sense of responsibility to be able to make them evolve and to get to places. And if they succeed, amazing. If they don't, they give it a best shot. But there's one thing I tell them, actually most of them, when I do this sort of thing. So, supporting and putting them into roles, etc. What I say is usually, number one is, you're not going to get my job. Just forget about it. Don't backstab me. Don't try to go right. You're not getting the job. All right, let's agree on that first before we move forward. That's the first one. So the second is, I will make you the best CIO or CDO you can possibly be, and I want you to be better than me. So that just screams trust and commitment. And I'll tell you, once people know exactly where we stand, we've got each other's back. So we've got each other's six, and it is a very good journey for all parties. I have several examples of these, Nathalie, if you need some.
Okay, thank you. I think that's where your sense of humor that some of your direct reports were referring to, right? You're not going to get my job, not just yet.
Yeah, well, I think that there's some additional things there too. So it's I used to take, I don't do this on new jobs because I need to take some time with policies and all that sort of stuff, right? So, but I used to take a selfie in the morning. I wake up really early and then send to my direct reports and say, a boost of motivation for you. So they used to reply. It was all redacted after that. So let's close the context.
Oh, yes. And well, so much again that you shared that I wanted to comment, if I may, George. Interesting, it's kind of full circle with the supporting the leaders' growth, because when I wrote the 1.0, the thinking behind that particular declaration was exactly what you mentioned. It can be, well, two things. It can be lonely at the top. The more you grow, the more senior you become. I think there is more expectation that you know it all. You don't need support. You don't need leadership development. You don't need coaching, etc. And also, I think in the tech space, there is a bit of a pattern of great individual contributors, people who are really great as a technician, if you like. They are promoted, but not necessarily providing, the people leadership training or support or coaching that is required. And as we know, being successful as a technician, as a programmer, as a coder, as a scrum master, whatever that is very different than being an effective, tech executive. So, and you had such a diverse, background in terms of the industries that you worked in. So in Brazil, you were with GM, General Motors. You were with giant, in the finance space, the Itaú Tech Bank. And here in Australia, you've been in healthcare, now in the justice space. So, and I wonder if that's coming from your artistic side, the creativity, the versatility, ability to thrive in those different spaces. But yeah. And just stop rambling. I don't know if you had any comments based on my rambling.
Yeah, no, it's that's very very insightful from you talking about my background, because it is diverse. And was that intentional? Some of them, yes, and some not. So it's just the opportunities that I had, and I had to make the most of them, and which was good. Now, about the creative side and the scientific side, yes, I have an interesting, I don't know to what point interesting double quotes mind is, because I do love arts, and I have a passion for music, for everything. But also I'm absolutely fanatic for technology and science. So I apply creative into science, and the other way around. So, and I feel quite comfortable doing that, and it's something that's being picked up by a few people over the years, asking me how I can write songs, paint, and then execute some IT or technological strategy around operations. About day to day, about long-term 3, 5, 10-year strategies. And I never really had the answer for it. But one thing that I know is that I could do it, and because I believed I could do it, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. Well, I can see it. So if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So I was like, I think I can give it a good crack here, and usually works. It might not be perfect, but it works, and it's been taking me to places. But it's the thinking outside the box that it's important on that. And for you to be able to think outside the box, you do require a level of creativity. So
100%.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I think we could spend another 2 hours on that topic, but let's shift gears and let's talk a little bit about, self-care, George. So, you are in a very high pressure, high demand role for a number of years, your career, very high profile roles. And as with any CIO, really, even clients that I work with in a small organization, there's a lot of pressure, regardless of the industry, the size of the organization. I think 21st century, that's just the reality. So I'm curious, do you have any kind of regular routines or strategies, anything that you do to keep yourself in a good shape mentally, physically, emotionally, to keep up with the pressure?
Oh yes, absolutely. We have to do it. It's the body and the mind. So, and the body and the mind will make you mindful, right? So it's a combination. So in terms of physical well-being, I usually go for a run early in the morning. When I mean early, it's early, like really, really early. It's, now it's summer, it's light, we've got daylight, but it's usually at nighttime. So, and not a crazy runner, but just to get the heartbeat up, which is good. I do that, but also for the mind, I love spending time with my daughter. So she's an absolutely genius. I love being tested by her, and just enjoy that family type relationship. I think it's the beauty of life. But as I mentioned as well, I do have these other things that I try to do outside of work, which is sculpturing or painting or writing, and that keeps my mind sort of a little bit more relaxed, listening to music, podcasts, just learning what other people are doing and try to understand the motives and the reasons why they do what they do. More on a human behavior analysis point, to be honest. Very curious about that. So that keeps me okay. Do I do that religiously every day, every week? No, no, I don't. However, I do most of the days. And I always aim to do that every day. And some days get caught up. Some days it's just pressures that you have to deal with. But if you have a good team, and you have a team that is capable of taking some of the load from you, things become easier. So that's why it's important to work with them, not just having them working for you. That working for relationship will never work. It will never really bring any meaningful results and balance to anyone's life. A team works best when you're working with them. And all my direct reports, I work with them. I have no second agenda. So it is what it is. There's good news is here, bad news is here. How we're going to deal with it? And you'd be amazed if you speak with them. It's everybody's putting a hand up to help, and they know that I can get under the pump quite often with a demanding job. So, but they're there for me, and that's something that allows me to have a little bit more of a healthy lifestyle, just put that way. It's not easy to get there, Nathalie. You need to have the right team, the right capability. It's a combination of things, but slowly you get there. And I'm getting to that place now, at Core Services Victoria, so which is good.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing, George. Wow. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think spending time with children in general just bring us to the present, because that's where they live. They don't live in the past. They don't live in the future. They often live in the present. So that's one definitely a great way to be mindful of here and now. And writing, painting, arts, such a beautiful way as well to engage with the present moment and to have that mental hygiene going on. And thanks for your honesty to say, no, yeah, it doesn't happen every day, don't do religiously, because I think that's the reality for most of us. And there's the intention and there's the reality, life gets in the way and so on. And I love your point around working with your team versus working, for, and the transparency there. I'm curious, there is one course that I run at AIM, the Australian Institute of Management, around leading with emotional intelligence. And one of the competencies we talk about how leadership in the 21st century, moving away from the command and control, leadership style that doesn't work anymore, obviously, in this day and age, to a leadership style where you build strong relationships with your direct reports. Can lead not just to a healthier culture in general, but can lead to people working with you making a discretionary effort, going above and beyond. And not that you are being emotionally intelligent leader to manipulate people and to get more out of them, but it is a nice byproduct. So yeah, it was just nice to hear from you that you have that almost like this partnership with your direct reports. So, being very transparent, and therefore you get the support that you need from them to have a little bit more balance in your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so although it works, I would say 99.999% the theory of 5 nines. It's not for everyone. So there'll be people that they'll find that concept foreigner and they still like to be directed and to a particular pathway. But that's just like a personal attribute, and just like people are different. Some people excel in performing certain tasks under certain guidance, and some other people are more adventurous and they want to explore their own capability and growth, which is fine. But most people receive that really well. And I think being clear, honest with the team is number one, and having each other's back. So I usually provide an example to them. I have a PowerPoint deck that has a sinkhole in the middle of a really big sinkhole, and ask them, what is this? And like, a sinkhole. So, well, yeah, it is a sinkhole. But now, why do you think I'm showing this to you? What's the context of a sinkhole to what we are doing here? Ultimately, is we are working together, same organization. And so what is the sinkhole? So the sinkhole, my question really is, what does the sinkhole represent? Opposed of what it is. So now it's a sinkhole, but what does that represent? And take a few goals for people to recognize that the sinkhole is always there, anywhere you go, and that there'll be a time that you're gonna go in there. Is the dark place? Is the dark place personally? Is the dark place professionally? And I think most of us have been there in those things. I'm not immune to this, so nobody is. And my next slide is the same sinkhole, but with a group of people around the sinkhole, holding hands. And again, my question is, what does this represent? It's a bunch of people holding hands, happy. They're not singing the anthem or something, but what does that represent? So people start saying, this is to support. Okay, yes, we'll provide support. The people obviously provide support. But what it really represents is, one day, as I mentioned before, one of us, all of us, will be in that sinkhole. And in that circle, you have two people holding your hand. You're going to fall, but you have those two people holding you, and there are many people holding them. So you're going to rely on them to pull you up out of the sinkhole. And you're going to be required to do the same for your peers. Because everybody has good days. Everybody will have bad days. And we have to recognize we're humans, and we got to be there for each other. And because if there's a weak link there, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to lose someone. And we're going to break the progress that we have to build an amazing culture, which is nurturing people and their relationships. So have I been there? Yes, many times. You can ask my bosses. They're there for me. Have peers been there? Yes, help them out. And sometimes all it takes is not just wait for the "Are you okay" day. Is you notice something, you go grab a coffee or whatever they drink, water, tea. But you know what I mean. It doesn't need to drink or eat anything. It's just that look in the eye. Sometimes people don't even want to talk about it, but it just acknowledges something that might be off, and provide that emotional support without a word. And people get that. So just say, I'm here. I see you. I'm not ignoring how your body language, how you're behaving and you're feeling, because I can see it, I can sense. And this is important for a team to develop these, to understand how each other feel and what makes them tick, and when we need to be there for them. So supporting them is absolutely paramount. So have that sinkhole, which everybody has a sinkhole. So just make sure that you've got good people around you.
Wow, what a remarkable metaphor, George. And I'm picturing actually now you going through the process with the people, and people staring at each other, and and then eventually getting the message, and even the vibe in the room, with those conversations. So wow. Yes, I'm lost for words. Many things came to mind listening to you. One was I'm wondering again, back to, because I'm curious, and in terms of inspiration, learning, how did you get to? Because for me, that's what I heard from you now. That's just a reflection of a really high level of maturity as a leader, and normalizing. I think that's a word that I had in my mind before. You are normalizing that, in some stage, we all will be there in that, sinking hole, and including yourself. So normalizing that could happen, and bringing empathy, preempting already, reinforcing that we are a team and we are here to support each other, but not just lip service, really meaning it. So I can't help to, I'm curious, how did you, reach that conclusion? I'm assuming there may be some experience or inspirational people you worked with, because where does that come from?
Yes, it actually comes from, well, when I was a child, I did not have many friends, because, when you're poor, and especially in the environment that I grew up, you either with the bad people or you're alone. So it's a very lonely place to be. So the first thing that I learned is how to be vulnerable at the right time. Not vulnerable all the time, not just complaining about everything, but being vulnerable is a thing. And I can see that a lot of people just are afraid of being themselves, are afraid of showing vulnerability because it's going to cost them something, and that it will cost them. But that's what I tell them. It's going to cost. Exposing your vulnerability is going to cost you. But wait until you get the bill. If you don't expose your vulnerabilities, you're going to be at the same place you are today in 5-10 years. So there's nothing wrong. Everyone is vulnerable, and it's okay. So I decided to recognize that, and I make myself the most vulnerable person in a room in meetings too, because I have to make recommendations, suggestions, decisions, and then some people will challenge those. And but I went through a process in my head, what would be the best pathway forward, but I still get challenged. And the difference here is, if you learn how to be vulnerable, you learn how to listen. You learn how to listen to people. And I'll tell you, most of the time, there's something there that you don't know. You're going to learn from people. Sometimes it might be a misunderstanding or a word that you used that doesn't make sense, or could be better said. etc. But most of the time, you learn something from someone who is challenging you on a decision. So being vulnerable for me is a very important thing. So when I started organizations and in the progress of my employment, my duty with the organization and the people that I serve, I go through these and I try to get them to see their own vulnerabilities and ask the question, or at least say everyone's going to be there one day. And I'm sure you have been there. If you haven't, put your hand up. There are no hands up. So they know deep down that. And I want them to learn that vulnerability equals progress. Because if you don't recognize that, you can't progress. So having awareness of that for me was very important. That I'm just a human, I'm not a superhuman. A lot of people may think that I'm a superhuman, do this, and that, can do everything. Well, I could do a lot of things, but there's capacity to it. There's, capability gaps on everybody. And that's why you need to understand your weaknesses, what you're vulnerable, and just promote transparency. And I think transparency in conversations and frank conversations are good conversations with good intent. So I try to blend all of this together, bring all of this together so they can think themselves and come up with their own conclusions. What would be the best thing for them to do next day?
Wow, my heart is warm listening to you. And I'm thinking, how lucky is your team, right? Yeah, again, if you don't mind, maybe just I'm sharing thoughts that came to mind listening to you, the common humanity, that the fact that we all have these ups and downs, bad days, and the courage, I think Brené Brown talks about that it requires courage, right? To be vulnerable, you need to be brave, actually, because you're exposing yourself, and that's what you're inviting your team to do, to be brave enough to be vulnerable, which sounds like a bit of a paradox. And the research also shows that being vulnerable help people to connect, because you realize that we all have that common humanity, and you are obviously role modeling that, because if their leader is being vulnerable, it's safe for everyone else to be vulnerable as well. So you're setting that standard. So well done. Wow, George, that's wonderful. Lucky team you have. Wow, I think yes. Maybe we'll shift gears. I'm conscious of time and still have a little bit that I would like to cover. So I wanted to talk about AI and your experience with AI, augmented decisions in the healthcare space, and now with Court Service Victoria. But before we go there, because we're talking about such great standards of leadership, so just curious, do you have any role models, anyone that highly inspired you, or any public figures, or perhaps someone that you worked with that inspired you as a great leader?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I do. There's one involved. I had many great leaders, and yeah, they all had obviously different capabilities, but there is one in particular that just it's off the charts, and that's Kate Munnings. So she's she used to be the group CEO for Virtus Health, where I used to work as a chief digital health officer, which is a multinational assisted reproductive services organization, and she could connect at every level, just put that way. She's also on a board for the Wesfarmers, so in Australia. Very, very smart, very intelligent, and emotional, has a high degree of emotional intelligence too. So what she taught me, and I keep learning from Kate, still in touch, is that connecting with people with all of the levels within the organization, even if it's not frequent, is important. So that has pros and cons. So talking about frontliners, every single person in the organization knew Kate when she was there, have met her, had a chat with her, and had a direct access to her at any point in time. So there was no hierarchical, you need to let me know when you're speaking to this person or that person, copy me on this email, that email, don't go do this. No, there was a direct connection to her if there was some escalation to some things. And her approach was always, and I remember this because I witnessed, I was having conversations with her and people approaching her. So I've got this problem, this and that. And she was like, oh, okay. But have you spoke with this person? No, all right. What would you like me to do to help you? So, all right, go speak with that person and I will also send a message. So let's get to the bottom of it. Done. But that was a corridor conversation. There was not a meeting that involved 25 people. That was not a workshop That was not a memo. That was not several emails back and forth. There was a 30-second conversation that happened to tackle a problem, a challenge. And everybody respected her for that. Not only to mention the strategic view. So the connection with the purpose of what the organization did was absolutely amazing. So she was truly leading people to improve the outcomes. So when you go through a process of IVF, is you don't really know the outcome until there's so many variables to it. So, but Kate and I, what can we do to improve the outcome? So I had to reverse engineer from a baby to all the way back to the ingredients. So to see what are the things that we could do better. And she had that mindset. So which is the personalization, the precise approach to medicine in a very emotionally charged journey for couples, for single parents too. So Kate Moniz is absolutely someone that I have a lot of time for and deep respect.
Wonderful. Wow, sounds very inspiring. And what that came to my listen to you was purpose, but we'll expand that maybe further down in the conversation. And I can hide that I'm delighted to hear that the role model that you are referring to, it's a woman. Very biased from my end, but sounds like she's a really fantastic example of servant leadership, servant leader. And I'm hearing qualities that I can see in you as well, George. And I wonder if that's why you admire her, because you can see a little bit of a mural, humility and ambition in a way, because there's element of being humble and approachable and relatable to the point that anyone can stop her, ask a question, and she will know exactly who she could introduce to, who people should speak with. But there's this also ambition around what she wants to achieve with the organization and outcomes, and I can see that in you as well. So yeah.
Thank you. Now there's, by the way, there are many women that I reported to, and I get in trouble sometimes saying this, but the boys have to to be careful, because I do believe that women does have a separate sense or something else that it's quite special, and it can relate to different things. I don't know if it has any links with the mother nature, but there's something there. So definitely. And I had great male leaders too, highly capable. But for me, if I had to say the top three, they're all females because they had that ability to link not just the emotional, but the strategic, down-to-earth approach. Highly capable, highly educated, and they're all there by merit, which means they actually knew very well what they're doing, much better than many people, despite gender.
Okay, so let's maybe flow and talk about purpose, if that's cool with you, because again, when I was doing my own work, reading about all the articles and podcasts you've been to, I got this vibe that you have worked in the healthcare space for such a long time, and now in justice with Courts Victoria. And I was wondering if this is somehow linked to your background growing up, and you're interested to work in that social service. Is also something that is in your LinkedIn. So is there a connection there for you, or no?
Yeah. Yes. So I love being able to assist people, especially masses. So if there's something I can do to assist masses and improve the quality of life, for me, it's good. Something that attracts me to, especially the whole life cycle for you. We all temporary here in this world, so we all gonna clock out at some point. And for me, it's important to think, what is the legacy I'm gonna leave, not just for my daughter, but for the younger generation. How far can I progress, so they can pick up from that point forward. And I think the way that I've been progressing with this has put me into this cycle of the organizations that are for purpose would be kind of healthcare and some other social citizen services, etc. And most of them are there, but there's also a lot in the private sector as well. It's just obviously a different motivator in terms of or priorities in terms of financials, etc., which makes absolutely sense. People are in business for money, and if I work for an organization that's for purpose, that's private, Village Health was one. So private organization assisting people become parents, classic example. And worked. But yes, it has to be connected with some sort of a purpose of assisting people to be better in some way. And being down the trenches myself, I know it's hard. So to get the help you need, or at least the technology that's required, or whatever I can do to assist. So I really appreciate being involved on things that can improve the status quo that will affect the masses, because that's the legacy I'd like to leave to the world, not for me, but to the world. An unknown person left to this. I'm more than happy with that.
Super. Thanks, George. Okay, so let's move into storytelling time. As I mentioned in our previous conversation, the areas I would like to focus here in the Mindful CIO podcast is the non-technical aspects of being a tech executive. So themes that often come up in our conversations are around how to manage competing priorities from multiple internal external stakeholders, how to attract and retain talent, how to get buy-in from the board and get budget approved and so on. In your case, I can see the innovation, or how to be innovative and lead visionary strategic projects. It's a big thing. So what stories do you have, George, if any, around the non-technical? I think we already covered a little bit of that, but anything additional that you'd like to share in the non-technical side of being, a CIO, CDO?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in any organization or any business, it is absolutely mandatory that you understand the purpose of the organization. What is the organization doing? Why are you there? Like, I did not wake up by accident today, so I'm going to work to do this because the organization does this, and it's important. And how does that link to the non-technical aspects of it? First, because it's a function obligation to understand what the organization does. And why is that important? Because everything that you do, it's going to be based on the objectives you need to deliver, regardless of the industry. If it is technology, if it is banking, or automotive, aviation, it doesn't really matter. So if you understand what the organization wants to deliver, and then reverse engineer, and I always talk a lot about reverse engineers, not breaking patents, by the way, but it's reverse engineer the purpose and the objectives into a full understanding of all of the life cycle and the parts, the variables that make up it for you to be able to successfully deliver what you need to deliver. Then it brings clarity to people. So I'll give an example. It's understanding the business could be as simple as developing understanding what the actual services you provide. So, and based on the services, who are the customers? Who are the providers? And then you go, what are the deliverables for each of the services? What are the tasks or steps that needs to be taken for each of the services? What are the skills required for the services? What is the proficiency required to execute the service at the level? What are the performance metrics? Do we measure anything? So to say that the service is good or not, we can do or we cannot, we have capacity or we don't. What is the risk associated of not having a particular service, not having a particular skill at that right level? So is this linked to some best practice or an international standard that you want to implement in an organization one day, like ISO, for example? Okay, what is the link to their controls? So understanding these things, it provides you clarity of what the organization does, what you do, what you're expecting your people to do, how often, and what are the performance metrics that you need to put in place. So you get a very clear view on capacity and capability. So if you have a clear view of your capacity and capability for a period of 12 months, which is usually the budget life cycle for most organizations, then you can have the conversations that are factually based on facts, and then there are no emotions. It's not a matter of who screams louder. It's like, okay, this is what we need to do, what we're going to deprioritize here, because that's our schedule here, that's our work plan, and we'll have to move this task 3 weeks later or a month later because we need to bring this other one in. Something's going to give. That needs to be clear. And what I found in organizations is that that's not clear at all. So there's always just more being dumped on the desk, and there's no understanding of capability, the skills, the proficiency levels, and the capacity. Because you may work for a small organization, you have a certain profile of capacity and capability, but when you go to a large organization, have a different profile. And it doesn't mean that the large organization can do more. You find that small organizations actually perform better than large organizations because of the levels of management and bureaucracy. Pros and cons. I'm not saying that's a recommendation, but it's a pros and cons to everything. But you need to understand the business to be able to talk and discuss and negotiate. Without that, you have no ammunition to do anything. When I refer to ammunition, it's not just to attack, it's to actually give to the other people too, so they can shoot in the right direction. So if we need additional funding to deliver this by this date, and everything is a top priority, so we're going to need to increase some sort of resources. So we're probably going to need additional funding, and that person, stakeholder, potentially knows how to go about to secure that additional funding. So give them the evidence, and then you can work through. You need to be realistic. So it needs to work with data and not with thoughts. So thoughts are very good for strategy. Data is good for execution.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, I can see the critical thinker in you now. That was another comment from someone else on LinkedIn in your recommendations. Yeah, clearly a critical thinker and a very curious mind. So many questions you just on the spot, you just elicited there, George. And yeah, and I'm with you, not making assumptions, stick to facts and find out, fact finding. Wow. So learning, I don't want to paraphrase you because I'm not going to make justice, but something that came to mind listening to you was a client of mine who in his second role as a CIO, he actually suggested to be an intern, so part of his first or second month, he was rotating this small firm that he is working as an intern to learn about, the business. So I'm curious, in addition to, asking questions, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. As you said, we tend to learn if we ask questions and if we listen. Any other tips or in your experience, how do you go about, learning about a new organization when you join, or any thoughts around that?
Yeah, there's traditionally there are 2 methods to it, but there's a third one too. So which we'll talk about. The first method is applied usually for introverts. They will go look for documentation. You want to learn the organization by documentation, which is good to an extent. Organization charts and stuff helps. Then there's the extrovert that was just go and talk to people and understand, who reports to who, what's the structure. They might still read documentation, may not, but they're extroverts. And then there's the one that will do both, and will actually experience, and we'll read, and then we'll go out there in the field to learn that. So I've done something similar. It's not been an intern, but actually spent a few hours or half day or a day in different departments before in healthcare, and it's amazing. So visiting and just having an absolutely walk through this the process they go and how passionate they are about and what really matters for them. It helped me to understand what I could do, not just to fulfill the objective and purpose of the organization, but automatically fulfill the objectives that they had in their segments, in their particular teams, that would contribute to the overall outcome and objectives. So that was very enlightening for me to see and learn from scientists, for example. I've never experienced someone actually doing an ICSI. ICSI is a process where you inject a biological atom into another, so to create life. And that was done before my eyes. And then I saw the data recording, and I saw the physical movement that needed to occur, and the validation, the cross-check, did we get the right ingredients? Is that from the right people? There's all of this tracking, all of these other things that happens. And my questions were, how do you feel about this? You okay with that? When your mind is trying to get the biology going here, the medical side going, and you have all these administrative aspects. So you learn, and so you try to create things that will be seamless for them, or at least better than what they have. But without saying it, you just wonder. And when you wonder, you make assumptions. When you make assumptions, you write strategies that are not supported.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, we might have to start to wrap up, I guess, George. I'll let you get back to work. So before my final question, I can help to think about, AI and all the work that you did using AI, Vitros Health, and now in your current role. And of course, I didn't really give you a heads up about this question, so I hope it's okay to put you on the spot. I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer of AI for good, and of course, there are many concerns around lack of legislation, governance globally, in the AI space. But there are so many use cases for AI for good, and I think you are a live example of that. So, based on your experience, George, with implementing innovative, groundbreaking solutions using AI at Vitros Health, and now with your current role, looking to use AI to augment decisions at Court Service Victoria. I'm curious, what's your view on the role of CIOs and CDOs in the AI age, especially when we still don't have, very robust legislation and robust governance frameworks that can ensure that AI solutions will have human best interests at heart. So any thoughts around that kind of very vague, broad theme?
Yeah, it's always big questions around technologies that disrupt, right? And we don't have like all of the answers for it, but I think there's some principles around this. And AI, let's just start with the role. Who is responsible for AI? So it's a question, isn't it? And but it's a question that is not really asked anywhere. So AI tends to land on, either the chief digital officer, CIO, CTO, IT manager, because there's a technology component to it. And I get the point. But if you look into what AI does or what it can do for organizations, it is more of a business tool than a technology. Because there are many different types of AIs out there. The technology is the platform, is the stack you use, and you're going to use A, B, or C. But I think I wrote an article on LinkedIn around the rise of the KO, which was the chief AI officer. And I think, if I had to rewrite or update that article or write subsequent one to that, wouldn't be an AI particular title, but would be something around emerging technologies, because that needs to go to executives that fully understand the business and how AI could be used for the business. What is the capability of AI for the business? So it needs to have a marriage right there in the middle. So having that on CTOs, which is usually very technical, looks after infrastructure services, or even the CIO, which is kind of it's a merging type with the CTO nowadays. And then we've got the CDOs is more digital application portfolio type of senior leadership. It doesn't mean that there's business acumen there. It doesn't mean that there's business capability to be making such big decisions. And I will give a clear example here. And yeah, I get sometimes from time to time an unhappy phone call about these comments, but they're real. So it's very easy to find out if an organization has not just an AI strategy, but understanding what they do with AI. So if you go to organizations and AI is ran by the IT department, technology department, and you go there and everybody has every single feature of AI turned on and enabled for everybody to use, people would be great. They're going to use for some things that they want to do here and there. But is that adding any efficiency gain or quality to the work being done? Is that adding any potential risk? Are you sharing information with organizations that you should not be sharing with? Are you in the compliance breach or not? So you notice that there's a lack of thinking around how to implement this. I'm not saying that it needs to take 12 months, 18 months to implement, or 24 months, 3 years to implement. Some organizations just slow and we do that because it's complicated. But it needs to have at least board and senior executive oversight and ownership, because the questions that needs to be asked is, what can we do with AI to improve our business, not only in the operations, but strategically to position us in a better place? those questions, if you go to an IT department and ask those questions, there'll be very few people that might be able to answer. With all respect, they're excellent professionals in the domain they're specialized in, but there's very few people. So it might be a combination of people you need to talk to, but the executives need to have a clear understanding of emerging technologies, including AI, how that plays in a strategy. So from there, then it's AI could actually be earned completely by someone that's not even technology savvy. So, and as long as you've got the risk management and the technology arm support to it. So it's about the outcome. So I think I have AI under me, but I have a lot of business experience too. So I can go back to the purpose and do this. But when it's purely technical, you end up with a suite of products that you're not fully utilizing them, you're creating more problems, data segregation, compliance risks, etc. So it needs to be done quick, but just a little bit of thinking on the framework, but it needs to be earned by the senior leadership team, not just one person. Let's put it that way, even the board, because it has significant liability if done and used incorrectly.
Thanks, George. I can hear the critical thinker talking again. And yeah, great points around ownership, business acumen, and this idea of the multidisciplinary team as well, because AI, there are so many implications, right? Excellent. All right. So final question, George. I often close the episode asking, what are your top 3, keys to successfully leading mindfully and sustainably a high-performing tech team? So if you have one particular tip in mind around mindfully and sustainably leading high-performing tech teams, what would that be?
All right. So there are obviously 3 things that I always look into anybody that I work with. And I try to develop those things as we go, because we know they might not be so mature in one aspect or the other. But there's one that I can really teach people, and it's embedded in the person. And it may be mature, may not be mature at that point in time, this particular thing I'm going to talk about. But there's a great potential that if you give an opportunity, you can see that. So you always have to kind of try to see if you can get, and that's passion for what you do. You can be a dentist, and you can be a 100 times better dentist if you love what you do. So the same thing for a CIO, same thing for any manager or a CEO. So if you really love and you care what you do, that actually radiates. You broadcast that just as you walk. It's around you, it's there, and that's contagious. So if you see a passionate person, get to know them, because that's just going to be fuel for you and for everybody around that person to grow and to evolve and move on to the next mountain to climb. So being passionate, it's important. But there's a very big difference between people say, I like that. That's not passion. So I heard once a quote that one person with the passion was greater than 99 people with an interest only. And it is true. You got to work with those people that are passionate and invest time with them. For those who wants to explore their passion or evolve, give the support. Give the support, and they'll take off or not. They'll make their own minds. So being passionate is one thing for me. That is very important. So I noticed that straight away when I'm talking to them, especially if they look into your eye, if they ask you questions that you're not afraid of asking questions. It's a silly question. People say there's no such a thing as a silly question. Well, there are a lot of silly questions I ask my daughter all the time, but I'm not here to judge anybody, because we're just humans. So that's the first one. The second is what I have grown with since I was a little kid. You had to believe. You got to believe you're going to be in a better place. You have to wake up every day, every morning, look around and say, I had made progress. Even if the progress is a phone call the day before to inquire about a course, to inquire about a job, to inquire about a contact that might help you. Was a Google search on something. I made a progress. I'm a little bit better, like 1 millimeter better than I was yesterday. So progress is important, but you have to believe. And the reason I talk about believing is because if you don't believe you're going to do something, you can do something, it's highly unlikely that you will. The likelihood or the probability of failure increases dramatically because it's just not there. You went into the battlefield already defeated. So when people say, "Oh, this is unrealistic, this thing we can't do," or we know the challenges. We know the challenges. Let's embrace it, and we're not going to shoot each other if something goes bad, but we're going to be there to try to navigate the problems. And that's, we know that everybody's working on the best effort and the best of their ability. And how do you know that someone believes? So you can pick someone's passion because their passion, their actions pretty much speaks louder than words. Someone who believes is that they are there and they're going to go, okay, I'll be here. I'll help you out. I don't know what tomorrow looks like, but I'm here until tomorrow. We'll find out. The third element to this is you've got the passionate person, you've got the person who believes, and then you have the person who behaves like they believe. Because if you behave differently to what you think you believe, then you need to go back to your belief system because you don't really believe. So if you believe in something, you will always behave. That's why people say action speaks louder than words, speaks volumes, or however, people say. But you have to go back and really do that. And that's not a bad exercise. And I find myself doing that often. I think of something good. I say, no, I really like this, but I don't really. So, and the proof of that is, what have I done to deliver on that particular thing that I thought I believed? And sometimes it'll be very little or nothing. So then it's okay to reevaluate yourself. Maybe you like that, but it's not something you truly believe at that point in time of your life. So it's something you're going to revisit in a few years or months or weeks or days, whatever. But you got to be passionate to what you do, because you got to be the best out there in what you do. You got to aim to be. You have to be the strongest person in the room, in your field. You need to know 10, 20 times more than what you present in conferences. So you need to be comfortable there. So you got to be passionate about it. And you got to believe you can make a difference, because we can. So you got to find those people who believe as well. And you behave every day, including having good discipline. You know that there will be days you're going to go to the sinkhole, but if you've got those hands holding you, you're going to come back and you're not going to lose your belief. So it's important to maintain that, and always do a call self-assurance check to see if you're still believing on the same things, and have your support network with you, because we all, at the end of the day, we breathe air, and we should really realize that the permanency is not something that is attributed to humans. So we have a short period of time here, and we've got to make a difference. For us to make a difference, you got to be passionate, you got to believe, you got to behave, you got to deliver.
Wow, wise words, George. I felt like I should just close with those wise words, but I can't help if I may comment. I love your first point on the contagious passion. And it just came to mind that that's actually backed by neuroscience, right? The concept of mirror neurons, how we feel, is actually contagious. So having a leader who is truly passionate and motivated, as you clearly are, it does flow into your team, so everyone end up being, if they like it or not, impacted by that, which is amazing. And your strong belief system, these, you mentioned before that if you can see, the artist in you, if I can say, if you can see, you can touch. So sounds like this is, the power of the mind is quite strong for you, and that idea of becoming, 1% better, taking action, making progress every day. And finally, the alignment between actions and words actually reminded me of, there's a quote from Gandhi that it says that, if your thoughts align with your beliefs and your actions, something around those lines, that means happiness, actually, because fulfillment comes from having that alignment. So, yeah, amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, George. Thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your openness and transparency in this conversation. I feel like we could go much longer, but this has been the longest episode ever. So we better wrap up. So, but thanks so much again. Yeah, wishing you all the very best for your role, and look forward to reconnecting sometime soon.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. And yes, keep up the great work and promoting all aspects of leadership, because it's not a one thing on itself. There are many parts to this, and the human is absolutely the most important part of it, because without the humans, we can't run it. People say that AI will run it. Well, we can talk about this in the next episode if you want.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, George. Bye for now.